There are growing questions this morning about whether the Secret Service agent hit by a bullet at Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner was struck by the alleged gunman or friendly fire. MS Now has learned that FBI investigators have not been able to locate the fragment that pierced the Secret Service officer's bulletproof vest after suspect Cole Allen rushed security at the event. That's according to two people briefed on the situation. Officials say they believe Allen fired a single shell as he breached the final checkpoint at the Washington Hilton. But investigators have not been able to confirm whether Allen's shotgun blast struck the officer or how that injury occurred. The FBI declined to comment to us here at MS Now. That officer was treated at the hospital and thankfully released. Allen appeared in court for the first time earlier this week, facing multiple charges, including attempting to assassinate President Trump. That action came as a new report dives into the rise in political violence and how state legislatures have become an increasingly dangerous workplace with threats, harassment, and even deadly attacks pushing many lawmakers to consider leaving office. The person who wrote that piece is on set with me. We'll come to her in a moment. But while some states have proactive systems for tracking and preventing threats, new investigating reveals most lack standardized reporting, security training, and clear law enforcement protocols. It all leaves lawmakers to navigate safety largely on their own. Here now, political reporter at the nonprofit news organization The 19th. She's also the author of that piece, Grace Panetta. Grace, I think it's an important look that you take at what's happening on the state level as we grapple with this larger landscape where it feels like violence in politics is everywhere, which I will say again, like I said in our coverage on Saturday night, that is not the cost of doing business in the United States. The great part about our democracy is we can disagree and debate and not have violence. And yet what you're finding here is that states agree it's a problem. They just don't really know how to deal with it.
Yeah, that's right, Allie. Most state legislatures are only in session part-time, but being a lawmaker is a full-time job. You can't shut off being a public figure and being vulnerable to threats. So we reached out to all 50 state law enforcement agencies to ask what they're doing, what their protocols are, and what data we collect. And we found that procedures are really run the gamut and are all over the place, leaving this kind of patchwork 50-state system where a lot falls through the cracks, as evidence like the assassination of Melissa Hortman last year and the events of Saturday.
Yeah, and I think you can't, these might seem like incidents that are in each place and each state might have to deal with them, but it is the broader fabric of the state of our democracy right now. You and I often spend time together up on the Hill, and U.S. Capitol Police, when they chart the number of threats that lawmakers receive, it is a line that just goes straight up, a massive increase in threats against members over the last 10 years. And even Congress at the federal level doesn't really have an agreed upon protocol that members feel good about. They're constantly reassessing there, too.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Allie. And, why this really matters is, states are the pipeline to higher office.
Yes.
And when people are driven out of office, the people most, likely most disproportionately affected by threats, abuse, harassment are women, LGBTQ lawmakers, people of color. And so it's this kind of quiet crisis that's been building up at the state level for years now. And we now see it at the federal level, too, even though there are fewer members of Congress than there are state lawmakers.
Yeah, but I think your piece highlights a really important aspect of this. It's not just that political violence adds fear to the discourse. You write that it's not just safety, it's a democratic crisis because good people aren't going to run for office then, right?
Right. And when we think about something like the assassination of Melissa Hortman, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. Something I found is that there's just so many little quiet things that build up over time, gendered abuse, harassment, the barriers that women face to running and serving for office, which I know you and I have written about and covered quite a lot. And then layering on top of that, these lack of security protocols, lack of data collection, like we have data from the U.S. Capitol Police. Most states do not even collect centralized data on threats and harassment against lawmakers. So we really don't have a clear scope of the problem.
So how do they fix it at the state level, at least, right? We keep track of what they're trying to do in Congress, but who's trying to solve it correctly?
Right. So I did speak to law enforcement officials for this story. And one of the things that both experts and advocates in law enforcement, all kind of agreed on is, they need more resources, which is also a theme we've seen at the U.S. Capitol Police, but also just more standardized training. What one advocate expert said to me is so often it feels like an individual problem as opposed to an institutional problem. So just more consistent trainings, clearer protocols, threats really being taken seriously, and there just being that sort of clear line of here's what you do, here's where you go, and just transparency, too. I think everyone wants more data from the state level so that we can really understand the scale and scope of this issue.
Can we zoom in on Utah as an example of this? Because that's one of the things you write about.
Yes. So obviously when Charlie Kirk was assassinated last year in Utah, a lot of it really shone a light on the security posture and procedures there. And what was interesting that I found is that Utah actually is kind of ahead of the curve compared to most states on tracking and addressing violence. They set up a threat management unit in 2016 that proactively scans for threats and harassment against lawmakers and addresses them. They do centrally collect data and produce threat assessments. And the spokesperson for their state Department of Public Safety said they're continuing to examine security protocols after and reassess and everything. So they were, more ahead of the curve, but not every state is there. And I just thought that was really interesting that Utah's been so proactive about it.
It also makes sense given how traumatizing it was watching that video of Charlie Kirk and the way that it sent shockwaves through Washington and across the country, frankly. And I wonder if you zoom out, looking at what happened here on Saturday, many of us were in the room, right? We're grappling with what that means. But there were lawmakers who were in the room, too. And I was so struck by the number of them who, we all know each other, the Hill is a community. There was no party stripe in that room on Saturday night. And I had lawmakers coming up to me saying, do you know what's going on? Where should we go? Is it safe outside? Is it safe in here? I mean, there was so much confusion. And I wonder, as you go to the Hill and you talk to members, are they as concerned about this as they should be? And what does it look like to try to fix a system like this that's, yes, born of tough rhetoric, but also of a security protocol on the Hill and in other places that just isn't set up for this level of threat and vitriol?
Yeah, that is really, really the question of the hour. And I think it is equally, a security protocols thing as it is, a culture thing in our politics right now. That's really, really tough. I think when we look at the events of Saturday, it just really highlights how political violence, it's one of those things that very unfortunately crosses party lines. It affects everyone. It's a very unique issue in that way. It's kind of similar to what we've been talking about sexual misconduct on the Hill, that it really cuts across party lines. And in that sense, maybe that is a way in which we, can work towards some solutions because it affects everyone. But it just really, really, again, highlights and underscores the fact that these systems are so under-resourced. And we've just absorbed, I think, so much of this in our politics. We've normalized it. We're desensitized to it. But that has really serious long-term consequences.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you've stayed on tracking this. I mean, you've been all over the consequences and the impact of the Melissa Hortman assassination, which remains heartbreaking. And I'm so glad that you're staying on this thread because it is an important one. And it's also one where you have to ask, why is it always the bad stuff that translates along party lines? We can try to appeal to some of our better angels. Political reporter for the nonprofit news outlet The 19th, Grace Panetta, thank you so much. It was great to see you.